Okay, at 6 o'clock, we're going to call the May 6th Board of Education meeting to order. Roll call, please, Luanda.
Robert Bianchetta,
Present.
Jeff Emerson,
Here.
Mary Gill,
Here.
Sean Hamilton,
Here.
Quint Harmon,
Here.
Chuck Lander,
Here.
Ken Miller.
Here. We won't stand, but we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance as we're sitting. So I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That's always a challenge. All right. Well, again, welcome everybody. We're glad you joined us, and we're happy to have you on the YouTube. Mary, do we have a thank you?
Yes, we do. We have a thank you from Quint Harmon's family. It just says, thank you very much for the beautiful flower arrangement for my dad. It was very kind and thoughtful during a very difficult time. Thank you again very much, the Harmons.
Okay, thank you, Mary. Any communications in general on agenda items or anything else? If not, then I would ask if there are any items that the board would like to remove from the consent agenda. Hearing none, then I will ask for a first and second motion to approve the consent agenda, including the minutes from the regular meeting of April 1st, the March activity funds report, the March treasurer report, the April monthly manual checks report, April payrolls, May accounts payable, personnel items, including approval of resignations, employee transfers, leave requests, retirement requests, extracurricular resignations, and extracurricular assignments.
I'll move.
Chuck
Quint
so
so
moves.
moves.
Quint seconds, and roll call, please, Luanda.
Chuck and Quint.
Chuck Lander,
Yes.
Quint Harmon,
Yes.
Robert Bianchetta,
Yes.
Jeff Emerson,
Yes.
Mary Gill,
Yes.
Sean Hamilton,
Yes.
Ken Miller.
Yes.
Hey, Mr. Miller,
Yes, sir.
and I probably should have mentioned it before the vote, but it doesn't change anything. There are a few items on the consent agenda that I just want to review with the board because we did have some unforeseen resignations that have come in recently that
Okay,
I just want to review real quickly if I can have a minute.
absolutely.
We received a resignation from Jamie Frazier, who's a first grade teacher. Jamie is going to be a stay-at-home mom, so good for her. I know that she's excited about that, but we did not expect her resignation in our staffing plan. So her resignation does accelerate by 1 year our budget efficiency staffing recommendation to take advantage of retirements. We had planned when Pam Vigna retires at the end of the 2021 school year that we would not replace that first grade section due to decreasing class sizes. But with Jamie retiring, now we can take advantage of that a year earlier than we were going to. And then when Pam retires at the end of 2021, we will need to replace her position. So we're going to be reducing from 7 sections to 6 sections of first grade a year earlier than we thought we would. So that's even though we're going to miss Jamie, that is a positive thing in terms of budgeting for the board. We also received an unplanned resignation from Caitlin Bricker, who is our hearing impaired teacher. If you remember, we started that program this year. She took another position. And after talking with Sandy, we are not going to recommend replacing this position. And since we do have a hearing impaired student, we are still going to have to program for that student out of district, which the parents are supportive of. So it's really a wash. There's no savings for us because it's about the same cost to send that student out of district. Jay Radke, our tech support, one of our tech support positions, took a full-time job at GABC. Jason has posted for that position and is currently looking for applicants. Last week, we received unexpected resignation from Carrie Troll, who's an elementary Spanish teacher. Her husband received an administrative position in El Paso Gridley School District, and they're going to move down that direction. I'm currently working with our K-5 principals on our plans for that position, and we're going to look for some cost savings for the district if possible. Also, there's a recommendation in there to transfer Rebecca Bott from a 0.6 to a full-time FTE. If the board remembers, we are doing that because Dr. Bennett, who's a music teacher, is retiring. And in order to get music covered without hiring that position back, we need to move her to full-time. So you're actually going to be saving in the long run a 0.6 FTE by not hiring that position back. And then finally, I just want to give some kudos to Vicki Ryan. She was scheduled to retire on June the 30th. She contacted us asking if she could move her retirement to September 30th so that she could help transition the new middle school secretary, because with the schools closed, she hasn't been able to do any transition. So she didn't have to do that for us, and I'm very appreciative of her willingness to come in and do that and provide that training. So those are the personnel updates that are in the consent agenda.
Okay, anybody have any questions about any of those? Okay, then let's do a roll call on that one.
We already did.
Did we? I'm sorry, we did already. Okay, are there any questions about administrators' reports? Anybody have any questions about any of them?
Nope.
All right, any questions about special populations report? Sandy, anything you want to add?
I don't have anything to add.
Anybody have any questions of Sandy? All right, then curriculum report. Tammy, anything you want to add?
I have nothing to add. Certainly entertain any questions if there's questions.
Anybody have any questions of Tammy? Okay, Dr. Bug, we're up to you.
All right, I have a few items for you. One is every year, school districts across Illinois receive an annual LEA determination from the Illinois State Board of Education. It's a measure of the district's performance with regard to the provision of special education and related services. I'm extremely proud to announce that the district received a perfect rating of 4.0 in all indicators and overall. So I want to give congratulations to Mrs. Rakes and her team of special education teachers and all of the related service providers for their exemplary work with our special needs students. So that's a great thing for our district, and thank you to all of them.
Great job, Sandy.
I also want to take a minute to review the remote learning survey data that went out. We conducted a remote learning survey about a week and a half ago to gather some parental feedback on what our remote learning plan, how people were dealing with our remote learning plan, and we're looking for opportunities for improvement, obviously. Overall, I was extremely pleased with the positive feedback we received. As I told my administrative team, you don't send these things out to get pats on the back. You send these out to get constructive feedback. But I do think that it deserves recognition on the overwhelmingly positive responses that we got from parents on the survey. I'm not going to go through everything with you, but I do want to just give a shout out, number one, to our teachers. There was a question on there about the amount of time, are our teachers accessible to answer questions or provide feedback in a timely manner? We received tremendously positive results on that, which I'm pleased with. Also very proud of my building administrators who have been working extremely hard for their accessibility. The parental feedback on that was extremely positive as well. So we did have a spot for comments. As I told the administrative team, what you expect in the comments are people that have constructive criticism, and we did receive some of those, and we've taken that very, very seriously and looking at, how we can continually improve the system. So, but overall, I was very pleased with the results, and we received some valuable information. But once again, a shout out to our teachers and our administrative team. This hasn't been easy for them, this remote learning process, but it's also been very, very difficult for our families and our kids. And so it was nice to see the survey results come back in a positive manner. Another topic that I want to talk to the board about is I think that it is time for us to start considering reopening the district office on a limited basis. We've been off, everybody's been working remotely, but I think that with proper social distancing, we can open up the unit office again, starting on Monday, where we can develop a schedule where there's a district administrator here every day and there's a clerical here every day. Wanda has already been working with the clerical staff here to develop a schedule for that. Administratively, I can work with my district office team to develop a schedule to have them in. Obviously, we would not force anyone that has any measure of being uncomfortable. But I would like to get our unit office back open, functioning, so that if parents have questions or they know that there's a place to go that will be here for them. So I just wanted to get any board feedback and see if the board had any concerns with starting to open the office back up again on Monday.
No, I think we talked about that, Kent, about the possibility of doing that.
So if there's
No, I
no
think-
negative feedback to that, Sean, do you have a question?
No, I was gonna say, I think it's a good idea. Again, it can be then the central intake, if you will, for anybody that needs anything. At least they know a spot they can. So no, go for it. We need to start getting the whole country opened up slowly but surely. So let's start with our own house as well.
So we will, I'm meeting with my administrative team Friday morning remotely, and we will start talking about a schedule and getting things open back up here, at least on a partial basis, and we'll take it week by week to see how things go after that. But I appreciate the board's support in that. I think it's an important message to get out to the community that even though we have been here to answer questions remotely, I think having people here personally is going to be a positive message to send to the community as well. You also see a lot of dates to remember. I had LaWanda put on there even going through the summer, just because the remote learning transition teams that I'll talk about in a little bit have been working and have these potential dates out there. So I wanted to make sure the board has had those, but I will be coming back to review those when I talk about transition planning. So that's all I have, Mr. Miller.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Bug, I've got a question.
Yes.
Go ahead, Quinn.
With the recent information that we've gotten from the governor regarding opening and phases throughout the state and in districts, I see that, and I may be wrong, but I believe Grundy falls in along with Cook County. As far as getting information on whether the school will open down the road, if this district is not opened up or placed into phase 3 or 4, what does that impact as far as the district?
Well, it obviously impacts these summer dates, which, we had transition committees that worked that had parents, students, staff members on. So these summer dates were a response to their feedback. We knew that these were going to be tentative. What I am personally hopeful is that by the June date, we get more guidance from the state, because personally, I believe that there comes a time these kids and families need some closure. And if we get past the June date and we hear from the state that we're not going to be able to open in July, then I think it's time for us to figure something out remotely and get these kids some sort of a remote graduation ceremony or whatever, so we can get some closure. In terms of summer school, that's going to have an impact for us, which I'm talking with my administrative team about Friday morning. The elephant in the room, of course, is what's it mean in August when we come back, or if we come back. And to be honest, Quint, I don't have a good answer for that yet. Just because I don't know what it's going to look like and exactly what metrics are going to be used to determine that. I know that the governor's plan has put some things out there, and we are included in the Cook County region. But to be honest, I know people are really concerned about that. Depending on the metrics they use, there could actually be some strength in numbers that maybe the percentages are actually less because of the number of people in the region. I don't know. I don't know what that's going to look like yet.
So
Okay, thank you.
follow up with Quint there. I mean, I think that for me personally, I'm going to give you a perspective that, you know, that some of these things do an impact even one of my kids here. And I mean, I'm going to go on the other side of things. If I would like to, you know, the transition teams to start looking at the focus should be what, not if and not when, or definitely closure. Let's figure out a way to do it, and let's plan for it not happening, because I would rather us plan for something, whether it be something small, whatever we can do, and be ahead of the game there, than wait till June, July. You know, I think if we're ahead of the game there, we have a plan, and everyone knows what that plan is. These tentative dates, it's a great thought, but I'm a realist, and I think that having a plan to whatever that is to honor, if that's what we want to do, which I'm good either way. You know, I'm not emotional to that, but I just think that that's where our attention should be to now, to finding a way, whatever that is, instead of putting out dates. I mean, you could push this out, and I mean, most kids, if they do start college, start it in August, you know, so let's just find a way to do it. And I think that's where our focus should go to, because I'm a realist, and I love the positive. I love it, but I'm also, I think that the kids need the closure. And if they know when that is, they got all summer to get that closure and move on with their careers. And quite honestly, you know, that's the biggest part of their life.
Yeah, I agree, Jeff. And I think if we can do something, that's great. But I think given the governor's announced plan that he just put out, I do think that we're going to be moving forward with trying to figure out, you know, what a remote graduation promotion would look like. So at least we can let people know what it would look like if we can't do these things.
Hey,
Yeah, and
Kat,
at the end, at the end of the day, if you get it mailed to you, it quite honestly, and once again, I'm not emotional to this. I mean, it does impact me, but if that's what we have to do, unfortunately, that's what we have to do. And that's just the way it has to be. I mean, if it's mailed, whatever, I understand that you're kind of constrained on what you can, and it may simply be, thank you, you're getting it in the mail. That's all we really can do. But at least that is out there, and it's not, hey, you're saying there's a chance.
yeah. Hey, Kat, when you said earlier by the June date, what June date are you talking about?
What I'm talking about, Sean, is I am hopeful that by the June 8th grade promotion graduation date, the June 26th, 27th, I'm hopeful that by that point, we have more guidance from the state so we know whether the July date is a possibility or not, is what I'm hoping.
And are you, Kent, when you say the July date, can I assume you're talking about all those dates that are tentative for July, everything like prom and all that stuff?
Correct. I understand that we want to provide these opportunities for our kids if we possibly can. But I also don't want to keep stringing these kids and their families along if we get information that says, look, July's not going to happen. So I'm hopeful that by the June dates, which is the last week of June, we've got guidance from the state that already tells us whether July can happen or not.
Okay.
So that we can move forward. And
Okay.
if I think once we hit those June dates, or if we find out before that it can't happen, then I think we need to have a plan in place to honor these kids somehow remotely so that they can have some closure.
But
I
it
thought
all
it was interesting. I don't know.
now, right?
What's that,
Right.
Jeff?
It's something you could start working on now, though, right?
Oh, absolutely. Given the
Yeah.
governor's announcement yesterday,
Yes.
yes.
Yep.
I thought it was interesting. I don't know if you saw it or not, but Channel 5 did the Bourbonnais graduation today. They filmed the Bourbonnais graduation where the kids just walked across the stage and picked up a thing and picked up their diploma and left.
Yeah.
But that was on the 5 o'clock news on Channel 5.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it could be creative, it could be very generic, whatever that may be, and it is unfortunate. But I mean, for me to sit on here and think that we're going to 400 students in a venue. And I've said this before, I mean, I don't dance, but I know how they dance now. I highly doubt 400 kids are in that venue dancing the way they dance today is going to be allowed.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, so we'll be moving forward and more information to come. I would just hope that, you know, we don't have to wait until July, that we're not left hanging till July by the state
Yeah.
to determine whether or not those dates can happen. So thanks for the feedback, though.
Okay, anything else we need to cover with that?
Ken, just one more. I know it's in your report, kind of ties to it with the enrollment numbers. How's our, and I don't mean to ask something, but how's our remote attendance holding up?
You know, Sean, I've been very, very pleased. Depending on the building, you know, the high school hovers around that 85% mark. The elementary buildings have been consistently above 90%. I remind people all the time that a normal day for us is about 94, 95% attendance, even when we're in session. So I've been pretty pleased overall. I know the further we've moved along, which is to be expected, you know, the high school has struggled a little bit more and they've had to make more parent phone calls and, you know, more contacts. But overall, I've been pretty pleased.
Okay, good. Any other questions? All right, then Grundy County or Grundy Vocational Report. Chuck, anything you want to add?
No.
All right, any questions about that? Any questions about the athletic director's report?
I do have a couple comments on the athletic director's report, Ken, and I
Okay.
talked to Mr. Hutchings about these yesterday. A couple things. Number one, back on April 21st, the IHSA finally provided some guidance regarding the spring sports season. And what they said is they were going to cancel the spring state tournament series. The summer contact days were suspended, but they said they were open to potentially resuming spring sports programs if the state deemed it safe. I had a lot of concerns with that. I talked to Mr. Hutchings about that. And actually the athletic directors and the conference, the Illinois Central 8 athletic directors and principals met, and they all decided that it would just be too difficult to keep stringing kids along, and we'd be open for a week or two. And so they all decided conference-wide that they were going to cancel the spring season. Something I think the IHSA should have done on their own, but the conference got together and decided that. So I wanted to make sure the board knew how that process went. The second topic, and this is new information, the IESA, our middle school athletic governing body, they have updated policies on player, coach, and fan ejections. And what they are saying is that if a player is ejected from a contest, there's an automatic 2-game suspension, and they have to complete a sportsmanship course online. If that player gets a second ejection from a contest, they have a 5-game suspension, and the school is fined $100. If a coach gets ejected, they have a 2-game suspension and a $100 fine. If the coach gets ejected again, they have a 5-game suspension and a $250 fine. So in talking with Mr. Hutchings, of course, the question becomes, if the school gets fined $100, who pays? Well, I think our position would be that it would become the responsibility of the student's family, to pay that fee, that $100 penalty. But that's something that I think would need to be written into our athletic guidelines. And so I talked to Mr. Hutchings about the athletic guidelines meeting. And Jeff, I think that's set for May 12th.
Yeah, Tuesday at 10 o'clock.
So that's one of the topics that's going to be discussed. The other topic obviously becomes coach ejections and who pays for that. I believe our position should be that the coach should pay their own fines for that, but that's something that would have to be talked about with the union. So I'm going to begin discussing that with the union unless the board has differing thoughts than I do on that topic. But those are new guidelines from the IESA.
couple things there. Going back to the athletic director and getting with the rest of the that I commend that, because once again we were put into a spot where something that we rely on for good information kind of left us hanging, and I think it was good to once again get together, put some closure to it, and I think that was good. Everyone coming to that, I think that process went well. With this IESA thing, talked to Dan just a little bit about it, getting meetings scheduled, but one thing I talked to him about, and as a board drew this, I mean, we're talking about middle school kids. I think if we get to a second player ejection as a middle school athlete, I don't think we really need to worry about a fine at that point, because there's another issue going on. Why in the heck are we getting ejected twice from it? So it might be something that we could put in, and we can look at something there too, where we may not go down that path of who's paying that player fine and that, because quite honestly, I have a hard time if a kid gets kicked out twice as a middle schooler. We got a bigger issue.
Yeah, I
Is that
agree,
something,
Jeff.
Jeff, is that something you're thinking maybe you guys will
Yeah. So that, kind of more to come on that, just kind of, we may not even have to really worry about that. So that'd be more to come on that after the meeting.
Jeff, as the athletic rep for the board, do you have any issues with an expectation that coaches would be responsible for their own fines?
I mean, the one thing, if this is something that is mandated and we have to do, we could definitely not put this on the taxpayers to pay for an ejection. If it's the expectation set, and this is one thing just early on, we have coaches meetings, we have parent meetings. If the expectation is set in the guidelines and we have a clear cut, what the expectations are, what's going to happen if it does happen, who's going to pay for it. It definitely doesn't, the taxpayers shouldn't be the burden of this fine.
I'm with them. Sorry, guys. Jeff, that's a great idea. Only thing that concerns me about that is that it's going to be, obviously I'm okay with the coach having to pay for the fine himself. We might get into a union issue possibly. I don't know if that's true or not. That's not, I don't know.
Yeah. And that's, yeah.
Also, it's going to be a judgment call because, and I'm not saying that coaches should never get, I don't think should never get ejected, but, it's going to be a judgment call from an official. That might be an issue as well. So I'm not saying that I'm definitely okay with the coaches paying for their fine. It's just that I can see something that's going to happen where the union's going to get involved probably. And that's something we got to look at as well. That's all.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to, I know as we're talking this, I don't want to stay on too long, but just early, I don't think we'll have stuff in place, but this has really never been an issue in the past I mean, they kind of went back a long way on this. And so I think if we put things in place, I think we'll be good because we haven't had issues with it. And I don't foresee having issues with it, but we'll have stuff in place.
Yeah, I think if you have it in the policies, Jeff, we should be covered. We should be good. And let them know what's going on ahead of time, so they can anticipate if that happens. I agree.
And I will be talking about that with the union because it is an issue that we need to make sure they're on board with.
Yeah, we just want to make sure we cover our end on that part of it. That's all. I'm okay with, like you said. So yeah, perfect.
Agreed.
Hey, Kent, this is kind of athletic related. Have we had any conversation with Brad Brazy about his trip, or did I miss that?
We have not. That's on my list, but I obviously don't see those happening. So,
Okay.
but I've got to review that with him.
Okay, good. I didn't know if we'd reviewed it or not, or if he was aware that it probably wouldn't happen, but that's something we probably should talk to him about, I'm guessing.
Correct.
Okay. Any communications from the floor or anything in regard to agenda items?
I do, Mr. Miller. I did receive one comment that I need to read into the record. It's from Robert and Brittany Kaluzny. They sent a message for public comment. Said thank the board for your consideration on this issue. We are thankful to all of you being willing to discuss it and review your policy. We will share the policy proposal with groups of homeschool families within the district as well. We appreciate your commitment to inclusion within the district. Sincerely, Robert and Brittany Kaluzny. So that was a statement that they asked to read into the record.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that. All right, then let's move on to old business then. I will entertain a first and second motion to approve board policy 7:40, non-public school students, including parochial and homeschool students, is presented with a sunset date of June 30th, 2022.
Quint so moves.
Chuck will
Quint
move.
moves. Do I have a second?
Chuck,
Chuck seconds. Any discussion?
Yeah, Ken, I've got a few things that I want to go over with the board, just kind of a review of where we've been on this. The board policy committee met after the March board meeting, which was reading number 1 of this policy. At that time, the board policy committee presented 2 options for the board at reading number 2 of the policy, which was at the April board meeting. Option number 1, if you remember, from the board policy committee left the status quo, no changes. Option number 2 was the language presented to you tonight with a couple of additions. Just to review that, the language reads, students enrolled in a home-based school that has been approved by the Regional Office of Education are allowed to participate in non-IHSA/IESA activities when enrolled in a school for at least 50% of the school day. Students are subject to all district policies and procedures. The policy committee met again on Monday to provide a final recommendation for board consideration. The final recommendation for the board to consider is the option that's presented tonight, which adds a couple new things to what was originally presented. If you remember, the first draft that was presented did not include IESA. We added that based on board feedback. And then I thought this was an important addition that was added on as well, which is at the end of the policy, you'll see important notice. There's a 2-year sunset added. That was an idea that the board policy committee came up with. And I think it provides a couple different advantages to the board. First, if for whatever reason the board believes that the policy change has not been working, the board can simply let the policy lapse after 2 years. There's no official board action and it goes away. Secondly, I think this 2-year sunset language provides the board the ability to let the public know that you are not going to be considering any revisions to this policy until that time. Essentially, the board can take the position that this policy is not open for discussion until 2 years from now. So I think that sunset language is valuable language, and I think it was a good idea from the policy committee members to put that in there. So given that background information, tonight is the 3rd reading for that potential policy revision, and therefore in accordance with board policy, the item is presented for formal board action tonight. So that's the background of where we've been and how it got to this point. So now I'm happy to open it, Ken, for board discussion.
Any discussion from board members?
Hey, Ken, can I just ask a logistic question back on that sunset language? Jason, if you don't mind for me again. The first sentence there, I want to make sure I'm clear in what it says. The board, so what happens if the board takes no action in 2 years?
If the board takes no action in 2 years, then the new part of this policy that was added goes away and it reverts back to the previous policy language.
Okay, so stated then the opposite side the same. It will take board action to approve keeping these changes in the policy anywhere up to 2 years from now, right?
Say that again, Sean? I'm not sure.
The board, whatever board is sitting here 2 years from now, let's say, has to vote to approve extending the provisions that are being suggested to be adding right now, correct?
Correct. So when I talked to Whitlaw about how to best do this, because I thought it was, a good idea from the Chuck and Bob are on the policy committee, and I thought it was a good idea. What we had talked about is a mandatory review in 2 years. In talking to Stu Witt, he thought the board had more, I don't think protection's the right word, but he thought it was better language to say, just like with legislative language, that, hey, it sunsets in 2 years. And if it sunsets, the only action the board can take at that time is to renew the changes. If the board takes no action, the new language is gone.
Got it. All right, thank you. And then Jason, if you could scroll up a little bit to that other bolded section that's added in the policy. Kent, my assumption is if the policy gets passed here this evening, when you talk about students are subject to all school district policies and procedures, some of the concerns that were brought up at earlier meetings about, drug testing, whatever those things are, like the in the weeds stuff, that would be specifically written in some type of procedure. I'm guessing.
Well, Sean, that's the main reason that we are not allowing participation in IHSA/IESA activities. Because remember that in the original concerns that the board had about home-based students participating, two of the big concerns were eligibility and random drug testing. Well, our non-IHSA, IESA participants aren't subject to random drug testing. So a kid that's in the science club doesn't get randomly drug tested.
All right, so it's your understanding, same thing with, say, a kid in a musical or
Correct.
whatever. There's A, no eligibility requirement for that, and B, no random drug testing for that.
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So that's why we crafted it the way that we did as a proposal for the board to consider, because it eliminated those concerns that the board had. And just, to review one more thing with the board that I talked to the policy committee about, as I've reported to the board before, and like I said, it's fine if the board wants to maintain the current language, but I do want to make sure the board knows, which I know that we've talked about before, and you're probably fine with, but we are on an island, in terms of how we handle home-based students. And this current proposal from the policy committee is still more strict than any school district around us. So, we talk about kind of cracking the door open to test how it works. I think this cracks the door open, doesn't open the district to some of the concerns that the board has. And with the 2-year sunset on there, I think that it also stops that after 6 months, somebody comes and says, hey, we want you to do something else. I think the position of the board should be, no, this is a 2-year kind of test that we're doing, and this is as far as we're going for 2 years.
Right.
Real quick, I have a few comments I'd like to talk about, and at the end, you could listen, you could comment, you could whatever. But a few years back, I believe, and I don't know the exact, we made a commitment to off the taxpayer feedback to put a $9 million auditorium onto our facility. With that $9 million auditorium, there was a big commitment, and it's been ongoing throughout the years at the board level to making that one of the strongest, I would say, fine arts programs that we have in this area, probably in the state. As you drive through town, and as we celebrated this year, we're having accomplishments that are second to none around. The one thing that I fear is that we have built something so strong, and I don't know anything about how to put one of these together or how to do it. But I sure know we put a lot of time and money and investment in an individual that has got this program to probably one of the top in the state. What I fear is that with this, you're putting a program and a facility into something that may not be at the standard that we have now. I don't think everyone has thought about the exact impact of a homeschooler trying out for a play or a musical in that position that you put our sponsor, our leader in, as well as all of us in. That is all I would like to say, but I think that we have one of the top programs, and I fear that that in 2 years could not be where it's at today.
And I agree with him on that one.
Sorry, Mary, I couldn't hear you.
I said, I agree with him on his statement and what he's saying.
I would hope that this doesn't this doesn't drag it down. I would hope that it would improve it, because we would have some people out there who might be able to participate, who might lend in and blend in with this. And I guess I'm speaking from a personal standpoint. My oldest granddaughter would have done a wonderful job in the musicals, but that's just one of those things, and I understand that. Okay, any other discussion?
I appreciate everyone's feedback, and thank you to Bob and Chuck, because this was not an easy
Yeah.
topic to
Absolutely.
get through, and they've done a lot of thinking and a lot of work on this, so I appreciate their assistance.
Okay, then we're up to a vote. Roll call, please, Lawanda.
Quint Harmon,
Yes.
Chuck Lander,
Yes.
Robert Bianchetta,
Yes.
Jeff Emerson,
No.
Mary Gill,
No,
Sean Hamilton,
Yes.
Ken Miller.
Yes. Okay, so we've had the second reading and revision of district policies. Dr. Bug?
Nothing to add. Once again, I gotta get the policy committee back together again, and
No problem.
Chuck and Bob and I need to review these. So we've been tied up on the previous policy, and we haven't gotten to these other ones yet. So
It's all right.
I'm
That'll-
sure
that'll
they're
happen.
looking forward to it, though.
I'm sure. And thanks once again to Bob and Chuck for their service with that. Okay, Jay, anything you want to say about insurance renewal?
So tonight we're looking at the EBC's renewal and our dental renewal. Those are both enclosed in the book. As you saw, the dental renewal from Guardian was at a 0% increase, so essentially a freeze. And the EBC, I did just want to point out the fact of, since inception, where our rate adjustments have been, notice that the net increase for us is 3.9%. One of the big reasons, of course, we went to the EBC was to try to mitigate and contain where these increases have been. I think that the board has realized that, along with the fact that our loss ratios have been very good, especially for this year. So I just want to point that out to the board. There's no action that needs to be taken because once we're in the cooperative, we're in it until we're not. So I just did want to point out what those renewals look like and entertain any questions that the board might have.
Okay. Anybody have any questions of Jason about the insurance? Okay. Then let's move on to the review of the board strategic plan, Dr. Bug.
So I spent some time with my administrative team looking over our strategic plan and strategic goals. And as you know, given the fact that we have not been able to be here in school in person, there are certain things that have become a struggle to get accomplished with the strategic plan. So I wanted to review with the board where we were at with our goals and talk to the board about the possibility of carrying some of these goals over into the next school year. And I'm not going to go over everything. You see things that are completed. I'm just going to go over the ones that are not completed. But the School Safety Advisory Committee, we met first semester. Ken and Quint both served on that. I was planning on meeting this spring. We have not done that yet. I could hold a remote meeting. I was hopeful that we could get there in person. But I could still hold a remote meeting, or we could just, put things in a holding pattern and wait until the fall and bring that group back together then. So Quint, Ken, I don't know if you guys have thoughts on that, on what you would like to do. I can do either one.
I'm
I
open
would
to
think
either.
wait till, go ahead, Quinn. I mean, I would say wait, don't you?
We can
Go ahead,
wait. I mean, I'm open to any of the directions you want to go in.
Okay. Well, I don't think we have anything extremely pressing change-wise with our school safety plan. So I think we can wait until the fall and get that group back together, as long as both of you are okay with that.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm
And if
good.
it's possible to meet in person, that's always easier.
Okay. Expand the use of community volunteers to assist with student safety. We always lose some of our G-force grandparent people in the winter, which is understandable. It gets cold out there. So usually we build that back up in the spring. And without having the spring, I don't really have a good feel for exactly how many people we have, especially at the middle school level. So once again, that's one that I would like to carry over to the next year where we can get a little bit better data. Health and Human Services, we have completed most of that. We are still ongoing with a plan that focuses on the supporting the social emotional health of all of our employees. So that will continue, but there are a couple of those that are completed. Moving on to the student learning section. In student learning, the big issue on here is we had planned on implementing a STEAM curriculum with a class at the middle school. We were going to change the computer class at the middle school to a STEAM class. After discussions, we decided to move it to a STEM class. But now without being there in person, we would have a new teacher teaching that. We were going to do a transfer to make that happen. After talking to Tammy and the department leader, it really just doesn't make sense to make that move right now without having people here and being able to discuss it and make that transition, especially now knowing that we probably won't be able to be here this summer either. So I would like to put that off for a year, keep that on our agenda, and make that change for the 21-22 school year.
I think that's important that you do that, Ken. We've got to make sure that this program comes off right.
So
and I think that's important to be prepared for it.
yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of work to do to get that put together. So I appreciate the board's support on that. We are going to have a report coming in June from Sandy Rakes and Amanda Davidson on the effectiveness of the MTSS program. We are still in progress, and this kind of relates to the STEM goal. The computer class at the middle school is one of their elective, or not elective, but rotation courses. And that's one of the classes we were taking a look at. So even though we've made a lot of changes at the high school level, because of that, the middle school is going to stay pretty much unchanged for the next school year. So that will remain in progress. The more I've read number 4 and worked with number 4, I've realized that we worded that, or I worded that pretty poorly, because it's not a measurable goal. So I need to go back to the drawing board on that one and figure out how I turn that into something measurable that we can actually take a look at. Under long-range planning, we completed the budget efficiency plan, presented that to the board. We're implementing that. The staffing transition plan continues to be in progress. And the facility usage plan, we had started that with the architects. Obviously not being here, we had to put that on hold. We're going to carry that over to the next fiscal year as well. And then under the Unit 1 community, we planned on doing a family health night this spring. Obviously that couldn't happen, so we would like to carry that over. We did have planned at the middle school, high school level, an industrial week that we were going to hold, where we were having various industries come in and present to our kids. That was supposed to be in late February, early March, but that all changed. And so we're going to carry that goal over as well. So one of the discussions that we will have to have down the road with all of these carryover items is, how do you want to proceed with the next strategic plan? Do we just want to carry items over, or are there new goals that we want to put on there? So Sean?
Yeah, I was just going to say, Kent, probably what would, because, you know, the majority of that, because of the circumstances that we're in, are all going to be kicked down a year. I know that the start of next year is uncertain. Probably, and I'm just speaking for me, I think what would help the board is, why don't you go ahead and take, I mean, I'm just me, but if we're okay, take it amongst yourself to go ahead and give us what a kicked down next year draft plan would look like. And then we can consider that. And I bet we probably got to think about really looking at, which you'll have to do this summer, is all the remote learning stuff, because it was something that we did the plan last year, and then we had all this remote learning. My point is, you know we're not going to be going through a complete process this summer, but if we can just see what a I say kick down, I don't want to say it that way, a deferred plan would look like, just present it to us, maybe add some e-learning stuff. that's probably all you guys that the district can be expected to accomplish, unless any of the other board members, disagree. But I mean, it is what it is,
Yeah, I think we've got enough on our plates right now to make sure that this is going to work all right, and then to complete the ones that we've got. I think that's a big step.
And the one thing, yeah, and Ken and Kent, the other stuff, Kent, that may have to get added, and I don't have to talk about it now, but whatever's in our employee transition. So if somebody's fallen off and retiring in another year, that may have to come on next year. You know what I mean? But
Right.
Kent, you and your administrative team can probably give us what that plan would look like, that we can just say, yeah, that's where we're going to be, and let's just keep moving on. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, because, and you do bring up a good point that, I'm really hopeful that our kids and staff are all back next fall, but I do think there still could be some restrictions that we're going to have to deal with. And so there is going to be a lot of planning for that as well. So I'll get something put together, and what we'll do is on the study session coming up, I'll have Luanda put the strategic plan on the agenda, and I'll have a document for the board to look at.
Okay. All right. Very good. Any other comments about that? Okay, then let's move to new business. I would entertain a first and second motion to amend the 2019-2020 official school calendar, making Monday, April 13th, a remote learning planning day.
I'll move. Bob Bianchetta.
Okay, Bob moves. Do I have a second?
John Hamilton, second.
Sean seconds. Any discussion, Dr. Bob?
Yeah, just a reminder, we got a lot of flexibility from the state in terms of our school calendar. And as we talked about it, Monday, April 13th was supposed to be a day off of school after Easter. We used it as a remote learning planning day because that was really after only a little bit of remote learning planning. But it does, officially the state has said, don't worry about the calendar, but I'm more comfortable with the board taking action to approve that.
Okay. All right, roll call, please, then, Luanda.
Robert Bianchetta,
Yes.
Sean Hamilton,
Yes.
Jeff Emerson,
Yes.
Mary Gill,
Yes.
Quint Harmon,
Yes.
Chuck Lander,
Yes.
Ken Miller.
Yes. Entertain a first and second motion to approve the Coal City School District's #1's remote learning plan as presented.
Chuck moves.
All right, Chuck moves. Do I have a second?
Quint.
Quint seconds. Dr. Bug?
We were required to put together a remote learning plan for the state and have it posted on our website. I'm not going to read the whole plan to you. You can see it. It answers the essential questions that the state requires us to answer. Obviously, there's a lot more to our remote learning experience than this, but this meets the requirements of the state and was approved by the ROE. Once again, it doesn't require board approval, but if it's posted on our website, I would like to have board approval of the plan.
No problem. Any questions about that? Roll call then, please, Luanda.
Chuck Lander,
Yes.
Quint Harmon,
Yes.
Robert Bianchetta,
Yes.
Jeff Emerson,
Yes.
Mary Gill,
Yes.
Sean Hamilton,
Yes.
Ken Miller.
Yes. Okay, Dr. Bug, anything you want to discuss about the remote learning transition plans?
Well, I just want to make sure the board is aware that we have put together a pre-K through 5 transition committee and a 6 through 12 transition committee. Those committees are made up of administrators, teachers, support staff, parents, and students. There are not students on the pre-K 5 committee. The students are on the 6-12 committee. I gave those committees basically 2 phases of work. Phase 1 was to figure out how we end this school year. So that's the information like the rescheduled dates that you see. That's what's going on this week, K through 5, in terms of student pickup of personal materials. So phase 1 was how do we finish this school year? When's the last day of remote learning? All of those things. Now that that has been determined, these committees are going to start working on phase 2 of the plan, which is what does transition look like for our kids to come back? Now, there's a lot of unknowns with that, obviously, but that's going to be phase 2 of our transition planning process. So I just wanted the board to know that we do have committees working on those things. And we've gotten a lot of volunteers to come in and do that. Appreciate their efforts. We also have a district transition team. That district team does include Ken and Sean as board member reps and Dave Singular as a union rep. And basically what we do is look at what the two building level committees have come up with just to make sure that it meets the needs of the district. So far that process has worked well, but there's still a lot of work that those committees have to do. Of course, the challenge is dealing with the unknown, but hopefully guidance comes sooner rather than later.
Okay. Anybody have any questions about those? All right, then moving on then, I would entertain a first and second motion to approve allowing all 12-month non-union school district employees to carry over any unused vacation days from FY20 for use until December 31st, 2020.
Sean Hamilton moves.
Sean moves,
Bobby and Ken, second.
Bob Bianchetta seconds. Dr. Bug?
Just want to explain this to the board because I haven't brought this to the board before. Just so you're aware, our non-union 12-month employees are provided with 20 vacation days per year. While most school districts, many school districts, I should say, allow a payout for up to a certain number of unused vacation days, that's something our district has never allowed and something I've never supported. I think it's not a good practice to start. As a reminder, our fiscal year for the school district runs from July 1st to June 30th, which means that if a 12-month employee doesn't use all their vacation time by June 30th, because we don't pay out for that, it's use it or lose it. Any vacation time used by our 12-month employees has to be approved by me or one of my designees, which is district office staff. I place some, or I say district office administrators, I place some pretty strict parameters on the building principal's use of vacation time. Unless it's an emergency, I don't allow them to use vacation on student attendance days. I also black out various other times of the school year, like 2 weeks before school starts, usually a week after school, and any other really important dates that I think they need to be there for. So as a result, most 12-month administrators can use their vacation time in July, over winter break, spring break, and the last 3 weeks in June. Due to the craziness of remote learning, which hit us right before spring break, and COVID-19, I think many of the administrators are going to struggle to get their vacation day allotment used by June 30th, because not only because of losing spring break, but because I think I'm going to need them in the month of June for fall planning and potential summer remote learning remediation planning. For many years, the board has allowed me to carry over unused vacation until December 31st of the next fiscal year. So this is something the board has done before. Due to this spring's unforeseen circumstances, I am asking the board to consider allowing all non-union 12-month employees that benefit for this year only. There's no cost to the board for this. I will continue to place the same parameters on vacation use that I have in the past. My expectation is that the administrators would use the majority of these unused days in July, whether or not travel restrictions have been lifted. That would be my expectation. I'm not going to allow the use of carryover vacation days for the administration on student attendance days or times I deem critical to the functioning of the school district, which could vary based on the responsibilities of that position. I have not included the 12-month custodians in this proposal because they have a union contract and we're required to adhere to that contract. So that's what I am asking the board to consider tonight based on the circumstances that we have out there right now. And I'll entertain any questions.
Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. First off, I mean, are we going to look at, this is just one, okay, we have a situation here that we're dealing with. Is this something we would consider putting together a carryover policy?
I guess, Jeff, the board could consider that. It's not something that I think you have to do, because I think in a normal school year, using the vacation days.
Well, the only reason I say that,
not an issue.
The contract says June 30th, correct?
Correct.
So this would be kind of outside, it's not a breach of contract, but it's outside of the contract. So when you're going outside of the contract, there has to be parameters on why you're going outside the contract. You're beyond just because of this situation. This may not be the only situation that we're in. It might be a good idea to have a carryover policy because there's could be a lot of different things. The only other thing, I know it's easy to say, yeah, let's just do this. But remember, some of the people that are on that list are critical members that will be leaving the organization, that will be adding on up to 3 weeks of vacation on top of what they have coming. And these are the people that we are going to be required to be mentoring their replacements. So I would like to see what it looked like before the expectation is to have it all done in July, but that's not what necessarily could happen. So without having that information, it's hard for me to say, yeah, go ahead, because there's some critical things around this that I think need to be thought through and have some policy or some kind of rules around it, because I just think it's something we need to look at or a little bit deeper.
Okay. And, if the board feels like that's warranted, the action doesn't have to be taken tonight because the fiscal year doesn't end until June 30th. So the action could still be taken at the June meeting if there's more information that the board would like on the topic. Like I said, I think what all of us in schools are going to have to come to grips with is the fact that we may be taking vacation that is not the traditional vacation that we have always taken, which, the expectation would be that, I would not allow one of our administrators to take 2 weeks of vacation on student attendance. And so I think, when I meet with the administrators, there has to be an understanding that, yeah, you might not be able to go to Florida, but you may have to take some vacation in June to start using up some of your days.
And that's a great point, because that's not just in the education and as administrator, that's in the real world. You may not be going to Florida sitting on a beach using a vacation day. You might be sitting right at 687 Trotter. But guess what? Unfortunately, that's the times not only are they in, we all are in. So like you said, it may not be traditional.
Right.
But I know,
So-
but the expectation is a word. I mean, and you're going to need these people more than ever in the next, going forward. So without spelling it out, I have a hard time with it, because you're going to need them. And I don't know if there's really going to be a good time for some of these key members to be gone for blocks. So they need to know. And I don't know if quite word of mouth sometimes is always the best.
Well, and, like I said, I have no issue putting this back on a study session agenda and not approving it till June if the board would like more information. I do think that the board needs to think about, because like I said, right now I have to approve all the administrators' vacation time. So I have the ability to tell them, no, you can't take it during this time. I think we need to think about, if we put a policy in place, does that provide more parameters, or does that actually open a door that the board might not want open? So we may want some more time to think about that, which once again, I have no problem with, because the fiscal year doesn't end until June 30th. So we can.
My only thought is, like, let's say you wanted it done by July, maybe you say in your carryover procedure, or whatever, however you ever want to word that any carryover has to be done by July 31st. And maybe that's not what it is, but I'm just using that for an example. But if it's not there, if it's still December 31st of 2020, on top they got reloading, it's going to be tough for some.
How many days would you say, Kent, have not been used? I mean, do you have any kind of a feeling about that?
Yeah, I've got a list. In fact, Jeff had asked me and I shared it with him. I have a full list that I got from Pam Folletti. I would say it ranges from a maximum of I mean, some people are going to have no problem because they've used most of them. But some have 17 is probably the maximum that's left of the 20. Some have 15. Some have 13, and some have 4 or 5. So it's a little bit across the board.
Which would turn into 37, which would turn into 35, correct?
Well, yes, correct. But
Good, yeah.
they would only be able to use those carryovers by December 31st. They wouldn't carry over for that whole year.
Okay.
So if they don't use them by the 31st, if I've got 15 days left, those 15 are going to come off my list first. If I don't use those by the 31st, they're gone.
But you also could have 35 that you could take by the 31st.
Potentially,
Yeah.
but I would have to approve that.
I just don't like one person having to approve it when there's something that's very simple you could put in place.
Yeah, like I said, I have no issue at all with, moving this to a study session with potential action coming after that if the board wants to consider policy, because I see Bob and Chuck on the screen. We have to have a policy committee meeting anyway. coming up.
Hold on a second here, but it wouldn't be to benefit days. It wouldn't be board policy. It'd be a change to the personnel manual.
Yeah. A procedure, whatever that may be.
Well, it could be, Sean. Let me give the board an example. The board has the authority to make these types of decisions outside of the contract, and I'll give you an example: the HSA payments.
Okay.
The HSA payments that the board makes are not delineated in the contracts, and you don't take action on each individual contract to make that payment. You take action to pay a group of people those HSA payments.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So this would be similar. And, the board has the ability to put anything in policy you want. But I just think we may need to take a little bit of time to think about if you want some sort of written parameters in place where those go.
Yeah, I mean, I see what Jeff's saying about having something written somewhere. It doesn't matter necessarily where, board policy or personnel manual, that would address this in the future. In regards to the issue of where we're at right now and allowing administration to carry over the days, I don't have an issue with what you're asking or is being presented now. So this is just for me. I have no problem taking a vote on what's in front of us and bringing back later what a policy and our procedure would look like. That's
I
just,
think I agree with you, Sean. I'd like to put this matter to bed for now, and then we do develop, if we need a policy or we feel like we need a policy, we develop something that we can take
because I'm
care of that.
also, I think Jeff said it, or maybe Kent, I don't know, but we also don't want to, like Jeff said, I'm all for putting something in writing, but then I
Right.
don't want to put something in writing that opens the door to, I don't know, somebody, and then their expectation is that we pay them out the vacation days, which again, I think we all agree we don't want to do that or not going to do that, so.
Right. I like the safeguard of the fact that Kent's got to approve any of those too.
But I will tell you from a procedural organizational standpoint, if the board wants to research something being either added to contracts in the personnel manual or board policy, I'm not sure I'm supportive of going ahead and approving this tonight, absent knowing what that's going to look like first.
Okay.
Because like I said, the fiscal year doesn't end until the 30th. So our next board meeting is June the 3rd.
Okay.
I mean, that's 27 days before the 30th, which provides plenty of notice for people to have status of their vacation status. So if we want to look at that, whether we do it or not, we may decide we don't want to do it, but I would rather wait on this until we know what that might look like, if the board's comfortable with that.
Okay. All right.
So-
Any thoughts?
Ken, is that your recommendation then, to wait?
Well, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is that if we want to investigate whether we need some specific board policy, board procedure, or contract changes, I would rather investigate that fully, get that information to the board, talk to legal about what that looks like, make sure we're not setting any type of causing any issues for the board in the future before we approve this.
So what I'm hearing then is you want to table this?
If based on the board's feedback, I don't think there's any harm in that.
Okay, then Ken, how about I make a motion to defer this item to the June board meeting?
That's fine. So a
I'll
motion has been
second.
made by Sean and seconded
second.
by,
By Bob.
okay, Bob's going to second that we defer this action until the June board meeting. All right, let's do a roll call on that one, Lawanda, please. Sean and Bob.
Hamilton,
Yes.
Robert Bianchetta,
Yes.
Jeff Emerson,
Yes.
Mary Gill,
Yes.
Quint Harmon,
Yes.
Chuck Lander,
Yes.
Ken Miller.
Yes.
And then Ken, you're clear on what we need for the study session, right?
Yes, I'm going to have LaWanda place this topic on the study session agenda. In the meantime, I will talk to legal counsel about the best way to look at this to make sure the board has protection, but also doesn't open the board up to anything in the future that you don't want to.
Sounds good, thanks.
So
And I
appreciate the
don't-
feedback.
And I don't know, Ken, if it would do any good to check with the other districts and see what they do. I don't, one way or the other, but
Well, I can tell you that most districts do payouts,
yeah.
and we've never done that, and I'm not promoting that.
No,
So,
I'd rather not do payouts.
No,
I think
and,
it's too
and the one thing
easy.
I think we talked about a little bit is it's okay if there's someone that then can take a Friday this week vacation.
Right.
May not be ideal, but maybe just say, hey, you got 12 days. It might be good to use a couple of these here.
Yeah.
Down a little bit if we can.
Right.
No, I agree, Jeff.
yep, understood. I appreciate the board's feedback. Thank you.
Okay, then moving on, I will entertain a first and second motion to approve the four-year student fee structure as presented.
Chuck.
Quint moves.
I'm sorry,
Chuck moved, I think Quint seconded.
Quint seconded. Okay. Go ahead, Dr. Bug.
So I think it's important right now, given the sign of the times, that we show some recognition of what's happening out there with families and the economy. If you remember this spring, the board officially approved a new 3-year student fee structure. That fee structure was based on a recommendation from the school district's budget efficiency committee. And as you remember, the committee analyzed the fee structures of area school districts and realized that because our district school fees were so low in comparison, there was room to increase fees, which would in turn increase revenues for student programming. Instead of jumping the fees all in 1 year, the board agreed with the budget efficiency committee in approving a 3-year incremental ramping up of the fees. Well, since the board approved that fee structure just a couple months ago, obviously many variables have impacted our school district families. Economically, we have families struggling. I hear from them every day. And as a result, I would ask the board to consider rolling back the student fee increase for 1 year to provide some economic relief to our school district families. What I've presented for you is a 4-year fee structure as opposed to a 3-year fee structure. That 4-year fee structure maintains students' fees for 2021 at the same levels as they were for 19 and 20. And then starting with the 21-22 school year, the 3-year ramp up in fees would begin. So essentially it delays the ramp up in fees for a year and keeps fees the same for next year as they are this year. Hopefully this provides a little relief to families who have been negatively impacted by the pandemic. Because I think anything we can do to help that doesn't cripple us financially and impact programming is going to be beneficial. And I think that's the case with these fees. So that's what I would like to have the board take action on tonight. And obviously I'll answer any questions.
Hey, Ken, has the committee reviewed your recommendation? Do they agree, or are they more interested in another structure? Or should
I
we
have not-
bring it back to them?
Yeah, I have not, I've talked to a couple members of the committee. I haven't gotten the whole committee together, Bob. I can do that, but the people that I've talked to think that this is the right thing to do, the smart thing to do based on what's going on in the economy right now.
The one thing I'm questioning is, we're just rolling it out a year. If we want to maintain the 3-year point, but just change the rates to 0 next year, then increase them accordingly?
To give the board a chance to revisit after 3 years?
No, well, what I'm saying is shrink it into 3 years instead of 4 years, but leave the first year at 0 still. That's a question for the committee, I think.
Yeah, I think what would concern me about that is you'd see a pretty big jump from year 1 to year 2 of the increase. We tried to soften that blow a little bit by spreading it out over a 3-year period of time. But, as an example, what you would essentially see for a high school family is about a $30 jump. If you did it over a, 2-year period instead of a 3-year period of the jump. So that's kind of what we were trying to avoid a little bit, was a big increase all at one time.
I think this is something we can do as a board, as an act of good faith to our taxpayers and to our people who have kids attending.
And we can look at this on an annual basis also going forward due to whatever changes in the economy.
Yeah.
Year
Right.
22, that could be a bad year also. So
Yeah.
we may be able to push forward, but I would say review it on an annual. We've got a 4-year plan. And I agree, keeping the prices where they're at due to the fact of this COVID-19.
Yeah, and Quint, you are correct, just so the board is aware, you approved this 4-year fee structure. You can go back, this doesn't commit you to 4 years. You can go back at any time and decide you want to make changes on that based on the state of the economy, the fiscal state of the school district. You're not committed to those 4 years. It just provides a pathway to get us where the Budget Efficiency Committee thought we needed to be in terms of fees.
Okay, any other discussion?
But I appreciate the board's feedback.
Okay, roll call then, please, LaWanda.
Chuck Lander,
Yes.
Quint Harmon,
Yes.
Robert Bianchetta,
Yes.
Jeff Emerson,
Yes.
Mary Gill,
Yes.
Sean Hamilton,
Yes.
Ken Miller.
Yes. Okay, I'll entertain a first and second motion to approve the resolution to accept a school site donation of $1,150.80 from Village of Diamond and to waive the reading of the resolution.
Bob Bianchetta, so moves.
Bob moves,
Mary Gill seconds.
Mary seconds. Any discussion, Dr. Bug?
No,
Okay, roll call, please, LaWanda.
Robert Bianchetta,
Yes.
Mary Gill,
Yes.
Jeff Emerson,
Yes.
Sean Hamilton,
Yes.
Quint Harmon,
Yes.
Chuck Lander,
Yes.
Ken Miller.
Yes. Entertain a first and second motion to approve the renewal of the Press Plus annual subscription at a cost of $4,150.
Sean Hamilton moves.
Okay, Sean moves. Do I have a second?
Quint, seconds.
Quint seconds. Dr. Bug, discussion?
this has been helpful to us. We used to have to, we probably used to spend more than that on legal fees looking at our policy revisions. So I think this has been a good value for the board. And I wouldn't want Chuck and Bob to miss out either. So
Okay, I agree. All right, roll call, please, LaWanda.
Sean Hamilton,
Yes.
Quint Harmon,
Yes.
Robert Bianchetta,
Yes.
Jeff Emerson,
Yes.
Mary Gill,
Yes.
Chuck Lander,
Yes.
Ken Miller.
Yes. Okay, any other items not known at time the agenda was presented?
No,
And I had a- Go ahead.
no, I don't have anything.
You know what? I had a question for you, and maybe this is the time to ask it. How are we coming with investigating those families who are not living in the district? And
Great question.
I would tell you that we had limited success. probably a bigger topic that I would be happy to put on the study session agenda coming up,
Okay.
if you're okay with that.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see how that's coming out and what what we've done with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I know you and I didn't talk ahead of time. Is there anything for closed session?
No.
Okay, very good. Then the two dates we need to be concerned about are May 27th and June 3rd. We will probably be doing the same thing we're doing tonight. So be prepared for that. And then at 7:20, I will entertain a first and second motion to adjourn the meeting.
Quint moves.
Quint so moves and Chuck seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you, everybody, and we are adjourned.
Thanks. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Hey,
you.
everybody.
Thank you. I know you'll miss me.